challenge. Our defense, we were in there. We self-corrected when we needed to. All right, we communicated on the floor, multiple levels of effort. We were connected on both ends of the floor. All right, we moved the ball offensively. It was just really, really, really good stuff. I'm proud of y'all.
Caitlin Clark's absence has been the headline story of the WNBA in 2025. And if you've been anywhere near sports Twitter, or excuse me, X, since we're still pretending Elon's rebrand wasn't a fever dream, you already know the debate hasn't stopped since the moment her groin injury benched her for the year. Imagine this, the biggest star the WNBA has ever marketed, the rookie who shattered viewership records, the player who became the league's Rookie of the Year in 2024, only gets 13 games into her sophomore season before her body taps out. 13 games. Just enough to remind the world she was the face of the league, just enough to lead the WNBA in all-star votes, and just enough to leave Indiana Fever fans clutching stress balls and muttering, "Here we go again." But plot twist, this is not a disaster movie. No, the Fever have turned the story on its head. Instead of collapsing without their superstar, they're waltzing their way into the playoffs. And Caitlin Clark? She's there for it all, well, technically present, though mostly glued to her phone in the locker room when the rest of the team decided to bust out TikTok moves like they were auditioning for So You Think You Can Dance, WNBA edition. To understand just how wild this is, let's backtrack. In 2024, Caitlin Clark arrived in the WNBA like a comet. Drafted number 1 overall, she didn't just bring talent, she brought eyeballs. The Indiana Fever went from a team that most casual fans couldn't pick out of a lineup to the most watched ticket in women's basketball. Average attendance skyrocketed, road games sold out, and TV ratings doubled for any game with Clark in it. On the court, she wasn't just hype, she delivered. Her rookie year stat line: a crisp 16.5 points per game, 8.8 assists, and 5 rebounds. She had the poise of a seasoned pro and the swagger of someone who had been the biggest show in college sports for years. The Rookie of the Year award was a no-brainer, and analysts were already writing MVP candidate in her future. And then came 2025, when the cruel gods of sports injuries said, "Not so fast." Clark entered the season ready to build on that meteoric rookie campaign, but after just 13 games, a nagging groin injury and a brutal bone bruise sent her to the bench. The team announced that after multiple consultations, she wouldn't return this season. Cue the collective groan from Fever fans who'd been conditioned to expect disappointment. Except, this time, something different happened. Indiana refused to crumble. Instead, the Fever evolved. On September 7, 2025, they thrashed the Washington Mystics 94-65 and punched their ticket to the playoffs. That's right, playoffs plural, as in postseason basketball. And for a franchise that spent most of the past decade as a cautionary tale in how not to run a WNBA team, that's no small feat. The last time Indiana strung together back-to-back playoff appearances? 2015 and 2016. Let that sink in. It's been nearly a decade since Fever fans had this much to cheer about. But while the team was popping off in celebration mode, one particular clip stole the headlines. Center Aliyah Boston, Clark's partner in crime and the beating heart of the Fever's rebuild, grabbed her phone and filmed a locker room victory dance video. Most of the team was in on it, shimmying and shouting, but in the corner of the frame was Caitlin Clark, sitting at her locker, staring down at her phone like a student pretending to take notes while actually scrolling TikTok. She didn't crack a smile, didn't nod to the beat, didn't even glance up. If locker room dance battles are a form of team bonding, Clark opted out entirely. Social media, of course, had a field day. Some fans clowned her for being too cool for school, while others defended her, pointing out that she's still a leader, even if she wasn't in the mood to bust out the gritty. Either way, the clip went viral, because let's be real, when you're Caitlin Clark, literally everything you do, or don't do, turns into a debate. Here's the thing though, her teammates didn't care. They were too busy relishing the win. 5 different players hit double figures in that victory, a perfect encapsulation of the Fever's next woman up mentality this season. Natasha Howard dropped 17 points, Ariel Powers chipped in 15, and Boston owned the paint with a vintage double-double, 12 points and 11 rebounds. Christy Wallace and Kelsey Mitchell also had strong showings, giving Indiana 5 weapons firing at once. That balanced attack has been the story all season. With Clark sidelined, the Fever stopped waiting for a superhero and instead built a squad of contributors who all know their role. Boston summed it up best after the game. "We never doubted ourselves. We never doubted that we could be in the playoffs, even if things looked like it got harder."
And that was really our mindset. We never doubted ourselves. We never doubted that we could be in the playoffs. Even if things looked like it got harder, for us, it was about sticking together. And I think through everything, you're able to see that, us play with joy, us play together, regardless of who's on that floor. And how would you?
Translation? Even when the injury bug hit like a plague, Clark sidelined, DeWanna Bonner waived after just 9 games, and 3 other players shut down for the year. Indiana refused to throw in the towel. Instead, they found resilience, grit, and yes, some joy along the way. While her teammates were dancing in the locker room, Caitlin Clark sat scrolling on her phone. But let's not let that overshadow what actually mattered. The Indiana Fever didn't just win, they dismantled the Washington Mystics. And the way they did it, pure team basketball. It wasn't the kind of night where one star carried the show. It was the basketball equivalent of a potluck dinner, where everyone brought something to the table. Natasha Howard, the veteran forward with championship pedigree from her Seattle Storm days, led the charge with 17 points, showing once again why she's the steadying presence this young roster desperately needed. Then came Ariel Powers, who put up 15 points while adding the kind of swagger that makes you believe she could talk trash in a library and still win the argument. Powers has had a roller coaster of a career, but on this night, she looked like the perfect complement to Indiana's rising stars. Aliyah Boston, the 2023 #1 draft pick, continued to remind everyone why she's already one of the most dominant centers in the league. Her double-double, 12 points and 11 rebounds, wasn't flashy, but it was the glue that held everything together. Boston doesn't just play basketball, she imposes her will. You can feel the momentum shift when she secures an offensive rebound or when she bodies up an opposing big in the paint. Add in Kelsey Mitchell, a player who's quietly been one of the league's most consistent scorers for years, dropping her usual points with an efficiency that screams underappreciated. And suddenly you realize Indiana isn't a one-woman Caitlin Clark show. It's a full ensemble cast, knocking down shots, and proving that depth pieces matter just as much as headliners. This is exactly what makes the Fever's playoff berth so impressive. It's easy to rely on one superstar to drag you into contention, see most of LeBron's early Cavaliers rosters, but it's infinitely harder to build a system where 5 or 6 different players can step up on any given night. Against the Mystics, Indiana showcased that kind of system. Their offense hummed with ball movement, spacing, and balance, the kind of basketball that makes coaches salivate and opposing defenses curse under their breath. And defensively, they held Washington to just 65 points, smothering shooters, clogging passing lanes, and making life miserable for anyone who dared to step into the paint. It was a complete performance, top to bottom, and it screamed one thing loud and clear. Indiana isn't just surviving, without Caitlin Clark, they're thriving. And for a franchise that spent most of the last decade being the league's punching bag, that's about as refreshing as watching someone actually nail the steps in a TikTok dance video, something Clark clearly wasn't interested in doing. Now let's add some historical flavor here, because context matters. For most of the last decade, the Indiana Fever were a cautionary tale. Since winning the 2012 WNBA championship with Tamika Catchings leading the charge, the franchise fell into a deep funk. They went from perennial contenders to perennial lottery picks, cycling through coaches, draft picks, and forgettable rosters. Fans stuck around, but hope was hard to come by. Then came 2023, when the Fever landed Aliyah Boston, the dominant center from South Carolina, with the first overall pick. 1 year later, they doubled down with Caitlin Clark. Suddenly, Indiana had not just a star duo but a foundation. Boston brought inside muscle and leadership. Clark brought the scoring and passing flair, and together they were the blueprint for the Fever's long overdue resurgence. Which makes 2025 all the more impressive. Even with half the duo gone, the team has blossomed. Of course, one can't ignore the elephant in the room, or should we say, the superstar in the corner of the locker room. Clark's presence, even when injured, changes everything. She's still the face of the league, the top vote-getter for the All-Star game despite not playing since June, and a lightning rod for both love and criticism. The fact that she didn't dance in the locker room might have been a tiny moment, but it symbolized a bigger truth. Indiana is learning to be bigger than just Caitlin Clark. Which leads us to the million-dollar question. And here's where I want your input. Does this playoff run prove that the Fever are a system team that can thrive with depth and chemistry? Or does it just highlight how unstoppable they'll be once Clark is healthy again? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is one of those debates where there's no wrong answer, unless you're just here to say Caitlin's overrated. In which case, enjoy your ratio. Back on the court, the Fever aren't just sneaking into the playoffs, they're coming in hot. With one game left against the Minnesota Lynx, Indiana is guaranteed a top 7 seed, which means they'll host at least one playoff game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The Fever's final record will be either 23-21 or 24-20, which, fun fact, is their first winning season since 2016. To put that in perspective, the last time Fever fans celebrated a winning record, streaming services still mailed DVDs, and dab was still a dance move kids were doing unironically. For long-suffering Fever fans, this isn't just a playoff berth, it's validation. It's proof that the rebuild is finally bearing fruit. So where does this leave Caitlin Clark? For now, sidelined. She's focusing on recovery, with the Fever's medical staff making it clear they're not rushing her back. Her long-term health is more important than a premature comeback. The plan is for her to be fully ready for the 2026 season, when she'll rejoin a roster that now has playoff seasoning and, hopefully, even more depth. It's the silver lining of her injury. The team has grown without her, which will only make them stronger once she's back. Imagine Clark feeding assists to a more confident Boston, dishing out dimes to a rejuvenated Natasha Howard, or leading fast breaks with Kelsey Mitchell on the wing. The Fever could go from scrappy playoff team to legit title contender in the blink of an eye. And while Clark wasn't in the mood to dance after clinching the postseason, she remains the emotional anchor of the franchise. Her competitiveness is legendary, and her voice carries weight, even from the bench. For all the memes about her scrolling her phone while her teammates partied, make no mistake, she's as invested as ever. She wants to win, and when she's back, she'll do everything in her power to deliver. In the end, this whole saga is bigger than Caitlin Clark, bigger than one viral video, and even bigger than one playoff berth. It's about a franchise learning how to win again. It's about resilience in the face of adversity, about finding joy even when things get tough, and about building something sustainable for the future. The Indiana Fever are no longer the punchline of the WNBA. They're a team with grit, talent, and now a playoff berth to prove it. The best part? This is just the beginning. So let's wrap this up with the facts. Caitlin Clark played 13 games this year, averaging 16.5 points, 8.8 assists, and 5 rebounds, before injuries shut her down. The Fever lost multiple key players, but still clinched back-to-back playoff appearances for the first time in nearly a decade. They're guaranteed at least one home playoff game, starting September 14th, and they're entering the postseason with a balanced, confident roster. Clark might not have danced in the locker room, but when she returns in 2026, the Fever could be dancing all the way to the finals. And if that doesn't get you hyped, then maybe women's basketball just isn't your thing. But for those of us paying attention, the message is clear. The Indiana Fever are back, and the WNBA better be ready.